do not understand that women are actually excelling in math above men right now. There are actually more females graduating with math than males. So people, still think, well, computer science, girls, that just doesn't go together. So, but it does, and it's more of a cultural issue than it is of an educational issue or ability to do the work. So we started the Cyberfly Girls Initiative about a year ago, and part of it is just to help us as females. Those of you that have been in the field for a long time as a minority understand that things that you come up against, and it really helped us to have a group that we could talk to each other. And one of our goals was to reach young girls ages 10 to 16. So we put together a mission and plan, and we work together we have Lolita, who does our social media. She is our official tinkerer. So some of us have degrees, some of us don't. Tiffany's an engineer, so we have a real mixed bag, and other people that we take on are going to have that mixed bag too. Part of what we do is we do help those who train the girls or mentor the girls to learn coding. So we're going to try to start meeting once a month for 2 or 3 hour sessions, and so we're not going to help just the girls, we're going to help ourselves. So I think it's important for those that get in front of the girls. So what we bring to them is a little bit about sensors, and a little bit about coding, and a little bit about cybersecurity. And right away we immerse them into how this relates to real life. So we talk about sensors, whether they're in the air, whether they're in space, whether they're on boats. And the girls are, right away, they know what you're talking about. They come right back with all the right answers. And then we talk to them a little bit about all this computer science stuff. It's very unknown, it's very complex, and we're going to be talking to you about a lot of words that you maybe never heard before, but we're going to break that down and start building blocks. And this is part of what we talk about here. And so when we're dealing with an unknown, we talk about how we use our personal senses to deal with unknowns. So if you're catch on fire, which I did when I was like 8, I think it was, my skirt tail caught on fire and I went running through the house, right? Because my senses were exacerbated. So I asked the girls at this point, what are their senses? And girls are very sensitive, right? They understand that part of themselves very well. So we try to emphasize that. So we go through that, just kind of ask them what are the senses, just give them a refresh on that.
And we don't show them the slide when we ask them that. So
they usually have the right answer.
The first time or two that we did the presentation, we had to flip the slides out because we kept bringing that one up, and they were all there, and we're like, we can't do that. So it's a learning process.
Right, and so I talked to them a little bit about how senses work, and that it's really just a memory. It's stored information, and that they might have apprehensions and when they're in a storm, and so that's when their senses are activated. And then we talk about you can practice getting your senses better, right? So if you're a fighter, whether you're a man or a woman, you go out and you practice and get improvements on that. We'll talk about that. And so that leads us into where are we going with sensors in technology? And it's moving into this robotics world of complex systems. And without the female perspective, it's going to be a very, very difficult thing. We're not going to have a good situation in the long run if we don't get women involved with all of this.
Women have a tendency to be a little more nurturing, and so their ability to problem solve on those sensitive issues will be an added benefit to any teams that are dealing with any of this type of technology, because we can bring a unique perspective into the room.
So then we talk a little bit about a lot of girls have trouble with failure. They want to be perfect, and so it's important that they understand it's okay, especially in computer science and software coding, to fail. And so we talked to them a little bit about an empirical process and that iterative approach to, scientific thinking, and then how they can use that. And then we emphasize different fields like engineering and electrical engineering. Now, the other thing I think that isn't that people don't really understand when you talk about STEM, most of the females are going off into bio worlds. And so we're seeing this huge gap in the physical sciences. So that's why it's important when Suzanne was talking about we need the girls to be able to put things together. And I just read a recent report where girls actually have a spatial deficiency, but they can relearn it very quickly. So somewhere along the line, they weren't allowed to put things together, to do tinker toys, or the boys were allowed to hammer and nail and they weren't. So if you have a daughter or a niece or a female, be sure and let them go ahead and physically put things together so they'll get that spatial identity that they would need in like BIM with the building. There's a lot of building going on using computer science. So, and then we're at this point, we bring out the little code kit and let's start coding. I think Kim bought one. So I investigated quite a few options when I went with this, because I don't know if you heard somebody say this morning about the Lego, the robot, that's very expensive. I looked it up yesterday, it was like, they're very expensive. And then you've got the Little Bits kits, which are, I think, a little too easy, and the girls go through them really quick. And this particular kit's kind of in the middle, so they use the Arduino open source platform, and I'll just pass this around. So
Each one of those cards, you get 3 sets of cards. You get a component card, you get a project card, and then you get a card that tells you a little bit about the project itself. What are your intentions for your project? And so there's probably 100 projects in that little box that you can do. We tend to use the LED lights strip because it's just a little more dramatic. So when we run the code, and they run the code, and that light strip, runs back and forth, they can have a physical, reaction to the success. I think that's key. I think of their soundboards, there's all kinds of sensors in there that you can mix and match to do various different projects. We did a class at the Museum of Discovery. As Pam had said, the girls got to see an opportunity for, let's call it, I really hate calling it a failure, but we were rushed and the computers and the kits were not synced properly. And so we spent the first 30 minutes of the class trying to fix that problem and problem solving that problem. But we got our feedback. We had one team of girls that fixed it on their own. They went out and researched and found out what the problem would be. And then we had Lalita and we had Tiffany working the problem as well. And they had girls around them watching them, problem solve, troubleshoot, try to figure out what was going on. So when it was successful and we were able to fix it and get it going, the girls all felt great because they were part of the solution, the problem solving. And so that gave them some confidence as well. And we felt good too, that we were able to provide something, for them for that day.
Yeah, those are my 2 favorite terms from the girls is, wow, that's cool, and the girls fixed it, So they tend to be able to handle it. So we talked through the code a little bit about what is a library and what are the libraries that are included. We talked to them about what is the function. We talked to them about variables. And as far as we can tell, they are picking it all up. And we had an 8-year-old even at Museum of Discovery. So 10 years old and up, they're very
They screen
savvy.
them. They have to apply for that. So they screen them and get a pretty good idea of engage, what their interests are, if it's something that they're going to be engaged with or not. As far as this was just one day out of the whole week. So we were just a part of it. They did other projects outside of that. So, but it's very well received, and it's growing and expanding and getting bigger and bigger. And all girls.
So basically, we have about, we did 2-hour session at the Museum of Discovery, which was just, I believe, the right amount of time to go through everything we needed to do with this one particular session. Now, if the girls go on and they buy a kit on their own, they can very well handle it as long as it gets set up right. I try to encourage people to get a little help on the setup, because I had to go buy a whole new computer because my Mac doesn't have enough internal ports to deal with the sensors and connections. So, but I think we've got a group here that we're all involved with similar activities. And I think and I search for these answers when I go to these STEM Coalition. It seems like we're all talking to each other, and we're not really reaching the community very much. And since we are always looking for advisors and those to help us, I wondered if we might have a discussion on. These guys were very helpful that were here just a moment ago.
We did attend the quarterly, was it a quarterly meeting for the STEM Coalition?
Mm-hmm.
And they are working with the Texas Girls Collaborative Project. It's a national project, and so they're wanting to build one here in Arkansas, and I think Suzanne mentioned it in her presentation earlier today. And there's a ton of resources through that program. So I'm hoping that we can reach out to some of those resources. One of them is connectivity, which means you have a need at your school, you write it up. There's a team out there somewhere that's writing up, we want a school to go to do this project, like us, And so it kind of marries those two together. Also, they encourage the parents to get involved. Because if you don't have the engagement of the parents, then you're going to lose the kids. If the father is telling the daughter, put that down, let your brother do that, then that's not helping our girls to feel empowered. So that's another area that collaborative project is going to help us with. But like Pam said, we are really anxious to have some advisors and be able to reach out to some other schools and some other resources so that we can.
So we've got some of the basics. We have a state 501c3. We don't have the national. Yeah, and I've been spending about a week trying to figure out what box to check on the EIN number. So I'm still trying to make calls to the IRS about that, so I can continue with that. So we'll be ready to maybe get some grants, but.
Yeah, because they have the Arkansas Gives thing, and I went out there and tried to put us in for that, because they give away all that money, And I thought, well, even if we just got $500 or whatever, but you have to be a 501c3 to participate in that program. So we really need to get that.
And there was one thing we did right, because the fee on that dropped from $400 to $275 in July. So that was one thing we did right.
And we're looking for sponsors as well.
So we can work at the schools. Like we've had colleges that have said, come out and do a summer session with us. And usually the colleges, like we did one with Euler.
We did one with UCA and one with Euler.
And they usually have a funding source. Like I think at Euler it's Exxon or one of the oil companies.
Maybe Southwest Power. No, not Southwest Power. It was It was one of the power.
Yeah, the power cooperatives.
Yeah, over there. Yeah.
So I guess what the best thing is, if we could go out with you, if you have an idea, you want to do one at your school, at your college.
I have to talk to some people. The only thing they're going to say is, well, you're just talking to girls. Are you going to include boys?
Well, I do have Cyber Flyers as a URL available to us to grow in
We're
that
really
direction.
trying to focus on the girls right now because we really think that's where we're better suited.
Right.
Yeah.
And we want to get that firm before we start adding
Right.
elements to our project or to our program.
And we
It is.
really believe women, young girls react better separately. And
Yes.
I don't know if that's gonna last forever, but for right now, it's
Right.
important. Now, I did learn something at our last STEM coalition where they said actually the male mentors as well as the female mentors were just as effective.
Yeah.
So as long as you've got enough females up teaching, go ahead and bring the men into the group. But if they're interested in boys, we'll pull our male counterparts in, and I'm sure we'll get enough people to help. Like those young guys wanted to help with teaching.
Oh, yeah, if you really say, I want to do something, volunteer, and you can figure out a way that you can bring in kids that it's not costing their parents a lot of money or any money, they'll figure out ways to do it.
Exactly.
Or
And that's
even do it through the
the-
school year.
The Innovation Hub is awesome and great. I love that place, but it's expensive. They're not catching a lot of the population. I mean, they're catching a small little part of the population.
In my part of the world, it's Delta, you got a lot of
Right.
socioeconomic people that are really poor or have no money. A lot of them don't have a lot of education, so it's gonna have to have something that helps.
Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts is a good
Yeah.
one for us too, I think.
Yeah, if you
because
have them
it's
in
a-
your communities, I
Yeah.
think that's a very good start.
Because then you can target a community of people rather than just girls.
So it's fairly inexpensive. The software is open source. It's all free. Those kits, Kimberly, $29. Kimberly said somebody got some free ones. How did you do that?
Yeah, well, I bought the much bigger kit that has the LED board in there. I think I paid like $90 for that, but I get like 2 different maker boards and 2 different circuit boards, and so essentially I've got 2 kits in one.
Okay.
Our Enactus group, which is our student entrepreneurial group, they are currently doing a STEM initiative with the Rogers Public School System. And they, after seeing my kit, reached out to Let's Start Coding to get kits donated for the public school.
Wow.
Yeah, so I told her, I think we should call because
Oh.
Museum of Discovery bought 30 after we talked to them, so.
So they're in the process of
So
working with the
hopefully-
company to get several kits for the public school.
That's great.
Yeah, they're
That is
working
great.
with the elementary school in the district that has the poorest population. So it's a lot of diversity as well. I mean, they have a lot of Hispanic, English as a second language, may not be documented citizens in their populations.
Yeah. Yep.
They've had really good success with their STEM program, so much that the district wants to expand it to every elementary school.
Right, right. Excellent.
So the name, a lot of people ask me about the name. So the word cyber in Greek means to pilot and to guide. So I got on the internet and I was like searching around for pilot and girls, and the original Fly Girls came up, which are women that served in World War II as pilots and have
Now they're popular, everybody's hearing about it, but when we brought them in, it was like nobody had even
Yeah,
heard
I
of
think
them.
you may have heard recently one of the women was trying to get buried in Arlington Cemetery, and that's why it's kind of trended recently. She's in her course, she died in her 80s. So we feel kind of a kinship to those women, and there's a big call right now for more women to serve, and so we're looking, hopefully that women will get the respect that they deserve on this round as they serve. So thank you for people that have been in this room and that have helped us.
Right. Definitely.
Very grateful to AFC.
Michael.